Hey, what's up guys, Alex here. Thank you for checking this video and welcome to another episode on how to build a WordPress plugin from scratch. In this tutorial, we're gonna take a look on how to edit our custom post type. And it's gonna be actually pretty simple and pretty easy because we're gonna reuse everything that we already have. So let me give you a quick example. Right now I have a couple of custom post types, one called comic book and another one called product. If I want to edit one of these, I could simply potentially rewrite the custom post type here with all the information in my form and then submit the form. And because I'm using, for example, let's say I want to edit a comic book, instead of having the singular name as comic book, I want to just have it at comic and maybe changing the public to false, I can literally just rewrite comic book as the custom post type ID, and then the singular name I want to be comic instead of comic book, and the plural just comics instead of comic books, and then leaving public and archive completely empty. If I save the changes, automatically I'm gonna, of course, update the changes, and because I used in the post type ID the unique ID comic book that was already in my array, WordPress will update that specific post type because of the code that we wrote in our sanitization. So if we access our CPT callbacks, in our CPT sanitize here, we are checking that if the input of the post type is identical to the key that it's already inside the database, we shouldn't delete that or we shouldn't add another one. We should simply replace the information. So we avoid to save another custom post type or like multiple custom post type with the same key. And this is great because it makes our life easier in terms of updating the post types. So the only thing that I have to do literally is that when the user clicks on edit, this page should refresh, should point directly to the add custom post type manager form and pre-populate all the information, all the text fields and the input and checkbox field with the information of the post type that I want to edit. So the user doesn't have to manually rewrite the post type ID. So let's do it. If we access our text editor or a code editor and we go inside the templates cpt.php where we're printing everything, here we are at a point where we have this fake empty link edit. We can completely delete that and we can do exactly the same that we did here, the same thing that we did here in order to delete the post type. So we're gonna create a form or like opening a form. But in this case, I don't want the form to point to the options.php. I actually want the form to refresh and point to the same exact location that I am right now. So I can simply leave the action completely open. If you don't specify any action in the form will point to the file itself, to the same location. And then of course, let's copy this stuff. Let's close the form, but let's remove the TD and TR. Great. Because I'm not pointing to the options.php, I don't need to include the settings field because I don't need a validation, a sanitization, I don't need anything. I'm not actually editing anything with this form submit. I'm just passing one simple parameter that I want to identify in order to return a different front end for the user. So let's echo a simple input field and we can copy this stuff. We can copy this entire input field that is hidden, but let's update a little bit. Instead of calling it remove, let's call it edit post. And the value of the edit post has to be the post type. So we need to identify which post type we want to edit. And then let's use once again the built-in submit button method of WordPress, but let's replace this. Let's call it edit. Instead of the delete class, let's use the primary. So we're gonna have a difference of color, and let's just leave the false because we don't want any wrapper, but we don't need any other parameters. We don't need a confirmation message or anything like that. So if we save this and now we go back in our backend admin area, we refresh. Now we have edit and delete these two buttons that are super attached. So let's just put a blank space here. So at least they are detached. Okay, perfect. So now if we click here on edit, nothing's gonna happen. Actually, there's a quick page reload, but nothing happens. The only thing that happens, we are submitting with a post request this edit post with the value of comic book. So if we do something like that, for example, if we scroll all the way back up in the first section where we open in the PHP tags for the first time, and we try to print something. So let's say that if is set the $_post request called edit post, the hidden input field that we specify, let's simply echo the post's edit post itself. That's it. Let's just run this test and let's check it. If we refresh the page, of course, the post request disappears, so we're not gonna have this. We change, or we click on the page, we change other page, nothing happens. We don't have any message here. But if we click edit, look what we have. Hey, comic book is the same post ID that we clicked on edit. And if we click edit on product, we're gonna have product. That's perfect. So we have this super really simple post request that doesn't do anything. It doesn't update. It doesn't allow the user to update anything. The only thing that passes is just the actual unique post ID that we want to edit. So knowing this information, knowing that we can access this page by passing a post ID or a post request called edit post, we can do something. We can simply say, hey, if the edit post is set, if we have something here, let's not print this first page, but let's actually open by default the custom post type edit stuff. Maybe change this title to edit custom post type. And let's pre-populate this form with the information of the post type that we want to edit. So let's do it. We can completely delete this. Actually, let's copy this is set because it's going to be useful for later. Let's delete this stuff. And here at the beginning of our nav tabs, we can change this thing. By default, we're generating the nav with the nav always active and always open, both the nav and the first tab. But we don't want this. We want this to be dynamic if we have a post type to edit or not. So we can simply create another class here. And let's open and close the double quotes, and here let's open and close the PHP tags. So PHP and close the PHP, and let's do an inline echo. So echo if we can use the regular brackets to wrap this around, or we cannot, like we can avoid it. If this is set, the post edit post request is set, question mark, let's return the active. Otherwise, we are not returning anything. And let's copy these and let's actually do exactly the same for these first class, but let's invert the validation. So if this is not set, so we don't have any edit post request, that means that we want this to be active at first, right? Then we can copy once again this thing and we can paste it inline here. Actually, let's go on another line so it's gonna be more readable. Let's have href. Let's indent it properly so it's better to read. Let's replace this add with this inline if statement. If this is set, we can print edit. Otherwise, we can print add custom post type. Let's save it. Let's copy once again this thing and let's replace this active with the same. So the first tab has to be active if we don't have the post type. So let's print this inline statement and say if this is not set, this is active. Otherwise, let's scroll to the second tab and once again the class tab pane. If this is set, this is active. So if the edit post is active, perfect. Okay, that should be it, right? Let's go back in our administration area. Let's refresh. Everything is okay. Custom post type, add custom post type. The first post, the first tab is active and visible. If we click edit, look what happened. We have a super quick page refresh where our custom post type manager page automatically opens on the second tab. The text is edit, is not add anymore, and we are seeing the form. Fantastic. The thing that we have to do now, we have to pre-populate the form with the custom post type information. And to do that, it's actually really simple. We already have something similar in our callback. So if we access the CPT callbacks here and we scroll all the way to the bottom where we have the text field and the checkbox field, here we have a couple of variables that we never use. So the input variables that is getting the option based on the option name that we're passing, and then the checkbox that is getting the option from the database based on the option name that we're passing. But these input variable and checkbox variable are not used in the printing because we are not pre-populating anything if the custom post type is there or not, because we're not doing the same thing that we're doing for the manager callback or stuff like that, because this is a multi-dimensional array, so we cannot get the unique option name from the database and see if it's pre-populated, because we're using one single form for multiple post type. We don't want to pre-populate all the forms with all the post type stuff. It's going to be like kind of insane. But we can use this input field and checkbox field to check if we have a post type request or like edit post request, and if we do, we can grab those information because we need it. So I know it sounds a little bit confusing, but let me give you an example. So let's do a simple if statement. In the if statement, we can check once again if it's set our almighty post request that we defined before. So $_post, if the post request edit post, it's set, let's say just echo yep, something like that. Something really, really simple. And let's do exactly the same for the checkbox. Is set? Yep. Awesome. Okay. So if we go back in the administration area and we refresh, of course, now we lost the post request. So these turn back into add custom post type. And the first tab that we see is the actual post type manager repeater. But if we click on edit, we go in the form and see what happens. Every single input field and checkbox has these yep printed out, because we are actually seeing the post edit post request, even if this PHP code is not inside the template. We're accessing and printing that PHP code with the do settings section, but also this PHP code can access that post request. And this is what we need. So we can say that if this post request is set, we should actually get the option and pre-populate the field with that option stored value in the database. So let's do it. First, let's remove this yep that we don't need it. And let's say that the value that we want to use is going to be equal to the $input, because the input is getting the option with the option name. And the option name, if we access the administration area and we inspect the element, we know that this field has the option name Alicat plugin CPT, and the option name is the unique name of the WP option in the database. And then we know that we're accessing the post type here. So we can have this sort of similar indentation by saying, hey, the input that has the option name, so the input is basically carrying the entire array of our custom post type. The input, let's access the post edit post unique key. So we access basically the Alicat CPT comic book or product, whatever post unique type, post type ID you have here. And then let's access the unique value inside another square brackets of the name of this thing, because the name is the actual value that we want to access. And once again, to make a little bit of clarity, the name, if this is this thing. In this case, it's the post type. In the second input field is the singular name. In the third one is the plural name. So all these unique values that are stored in our database. So by doing this super weird indentation, and maybe I could give it a little bit more space so it's more readable. Yeah, I don't know, but it's okay. So we access the input field, that is the option. We check the option if it's stored of a comic book or a product or whatever ID we're passing. And then we want to grab the value of that unique value that we're printing in this input field. So in our case, it's going to be, give me the singular name of the comic book in the option field. That's what we're asking basically. So yeah, that should make sense. Of course, if this is not set, this value variable is not set, and we don't want to use it if it's not set. So let's put this input inside this if statement, because we don't need to access the get option if the edit post request is not sent. But let's declare a default value variable as empty. So if this is not set, at least this variable is already set. And then we can print this variable right here in line in the value field of our input field. So if we have a value, this is going to print something, whatever pre-existing value of the form. Otherwise, it's going to be empty. So if we save it and we go back in our administration area, we refresh, we lost the post request, of course, but if we click edit, look what happened. We go into the edit custom post type and we have all these pre-populated information, comic book, comics, and comics. Fantastic. And here I have a small error. I have some empty blank spaces. Be careful about this. We don't want to pass empty stuff, otherwise they're going to be stored in the database. So let's refresh once again, edit. Lovely, now we have everything. Let's do exactly the same for the checkbox. And the checkbox, we have something really similar already done in the manager callbacks. If we scroll all the way down to the checkbox field, we have this variable called checked that if is checking if a checkbox is checked and it's returning true or false. So let's copy this checked. Actually, let's first copy this in line and let's put it right here in the checkbox, right after the class. So if this is checked, return checked, otherwise don't do anything. And let's copy these shenanigans of inline statement. And once again, let's do everything inside the if statement. So let's cut the checkbox get option from outside the condition to inside. So we don't want to tap the database if we don't have an edit post set. And here let's simply put a default value for the checked as false. And here we can do something way easier and way simple. So if we, once again, the checkbox, instead of the name, we want to pass the edit post. So if the checkbox option with the name that we're passing, comic book, product, whatever, has a value, another square brackets of this name, let's use the super shorthand version of our PHP inline if statement. So if this is set, let's use that value. Otherwise, let's return false. That's perfect. And now we have check and it's checked. Let's save it. Let's go back in our admin area, refresh. We lost the post request. It's fine. Let's click edit on product. And there you go. Now we have everything. It's filled up. And because product has public and archive both set on true, the product, public and archive checkbox are checked. So let's update this. Instead of products, let's say products updated. And let's just simply not make it public, but leave it archived true. Let's save the changes. Boom, look what happened. We have the settings saved properly, product, all the other information are the same. The plural name changed because we updated, and also the public is set to false and the archive is set to true as we decided. Let's do the same for the comic. Let's update this and let's say comic books. Let's revert that comic book, and then let's make it public and archive all checked. Save changes. There you go. Our changes have been saved. Isn't it great? We're reusing basically all the things that we already have from the previous tutorials, all the creation form, all the sanitization settings, all the CPT custom post type, all the stuff that we're already doing and WordPress is already taking care of without the necessity of rebuilding a completely different section or another section in order to just update the form. Of course, there are some things that you should do in order to avoid some issues for the user. For example, if we click on edit, this field, the custom post type ID, should be disabled. The user shouldn't be able to edit this field, because if we edit this field, the unique post ID, we're gonna save another post ID. Instead, because we're editing the form, we're editing the custom post type, we shouldn't be able manually to edit this thing. And you can quickly do it and easily do it in the CPT callback sanitization here in the text field. You can have a really simple if statement. If the name is post type and we have the option, we can return a disabled or not. So that's a little bit of homework. And of course, because we're using this method, you don't have to manage or update or maintain two different forms, one for storing a new custom post type and one for editing a new custom post type. Whenever you extend this form with all the other information of the post type, so we can extend it with all the other input fields that we avoided, all the other checkboxes, like a drop down to select all the categories or taxonomies associated to this custom post type, automatically this form will update itself if we want to edit a post type. So it's going to be pretty linear and pretty cool. So it's pretty much it for today's lesson. I hope you enjoyed. If you did, please give it a thumbs up or subscribe to my channel. And if you want, you can check the support me page of my website, where you can find all different ways and methods to support me, support my channel, and help me to do better videos and better tutorials for you. Thank you again, guys, and until the next lesson, as usual, happy coding!